Welcome to Rejects, the podcast all about unmade projects. Hosted by me, Isabel Zaw-Tun, a big loser who has literally hundreds of rejected screenplays, pilots, books, comics, and one interpretive dance that the Theatre Center described as completely unwatchable to the human eye. Luckily, I'm not alone. Every artist has unmade work, from Kubrick to Henry Darger. And today I have one of those artists with me. It's Darren Springer.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for being here. So excited. Darren is a comedian, a writer. You've probably read his work on CBC.
Yeah, CBC Comedy and some other places, Splitsider.
Denatured.
Yes, Denatured, done stuff for that. A few other places. I also have my own blog where you check out some stuff that I'd submitted to places and got rejected. So, anything.
Like a blog version of this podcast.
More or less, yeah. There's some stuff there that I didn't even bother submitting to other places. I was just like, I can't think of any site that would really go for this, but it's still up
That's
my
the stuff
alley,
that interests me the most.
Yeah, and some stuff where it's the day after the Super Bowl, I thought of a Super Bowl related post, and it's like, well, no one's going to take that now, so I might as well just
save it for a year, and then you'll be right on top of Super Bowl content.
I wish I thought of that. I did already put up on my blog. But as the webmaster himself, I could just take it down and forget and just kind of never happened. So that's an accurate description of me, an accurate and very flattering description. I'm currently in Winnipeg. I moved back here in a fit of frustration after having to move for probably the 8th time in 4 years because my roommates are like, this place we're living in is too expensive for us. And I'm like, well, I can't stay here. You guys were nice enough to give me reduced rent to stay here in the first place. So without you guys here, I'm going to have to leave too. Yeah, that's my tale of living in Toronto. That's my Toronto story. Just moving every 8 months because, my roommates want to move somewhere else or it's just too expensive, yada, yada, yada.
I think that's a lot of people's Toronto housing story.
Yeah, I would like to move back, but, I moved here and then 8 months later, COVID hit. So that really kind of put the kibosh on any moving I was going to do for the foreseeable future. But, we're 2 years in and I've reached the same point that apparently everyone else has where it's like, I'm just sick of this and I want to pretend it's not still going on.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I can't make COVID a concern or a factor anymore. I have to just kind of do what I'm going to do regardless. So who knows? Yeah. So basically, I've spent the last 2 years working on, I've got unfinished projects, which I'm sure you have as well. Pilots that I started writing and kind of ran out of gas. I just could not figure out where I wanted to go with them.
Any projects that I started during lockdown kind of changed as lockdown stretched further and further because I felt like, okay, I'm writing this story of these people and is the world that I'm writing them in even one that exists anymore?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I've made the choice not to factor in COVID for anything I've written over the last couple of years, which hasn't been too much. But yeah, I do wonder at a certain point, we'll see where the next year or two takes us. I know some people are probably going to wear masks indefinitely, but a lot of people won't, I guess. So
I think I'm of the camp where when I'm feeling like, got a little scratch in my throat, I'll wear a mask just to be nice to other people who I might pass in the grocery store, kind of the same way that they wear masks in Asia, where they're like, you got a little cold, not bad enough to miss work, you mask up just to make sure you don't get other people safe. That's the camp that I'm finding myself in.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably in the same camp, and it's trickier for me too because I am immunocompromised, so I'm still obviously avoiding, say, attending big sporting events. I will go to a movie if I really want to see it, but of course I try to be as careful as possible, and of course I am triple vaxxed and everything. So, but as far as the, I don't think I'll be comfortable going fully mask off. Who knows? Maybe for the rest of my life. Although, maybe that's being too dramatic. But yeah, certainly in the near future, I don't see myself just fully walking into the grocery store maskless. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, for sure.
It is very funny how quickly our sensibilities have adapted to this. I mean, we complain about it all the time, or I do because I love to complain.
Me too.
But also, and I mean, this kind of ties back to what we were talking about with the not really sure what to write for TV, movies, etc. When I see a scene of people at a restaurant in a movie, or when I see a scene where people have a meet cute at a grocery store and their faces are close, I can feel myself getting tense.
Yeah, and it's funny how that kind of settled in pretty quickly, I think, with COVID, where even a month or two into it, people are already being like, yeah, I'll watch movies with people people kissing or just being
Ugh.
in really close contact. And it's like, yeah, and I get that all the time with porn. I mean, I'll be watching porn and it's like, you guys, for the love of God,
What's
you've
this
never
pizza
heard of
delivery
it.
driver doing? Contactless.
You've never heard of aerosols? Yeah, that's I wanted that too. Like, has COVID really has that really sunk into the world of porn? Like, is there? I mean, there must be some. And is that like a thing that people are into, especially where it's like people searching like COVID porn? There must be someone who's like really into masks and, I mean, not social distancing maybe, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, or there's like the doctor nurse thing has always been a pretty strong genre. I'm sure that it affected that.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, even social distancing could be a thing where it's like there's no contact, but I don't want to get to the weeds there, but you fill in the blanks yourself, whatever. Yeah, that's something I haven't really investigated. Has that infiltrated the world of porn? I would think. I would hope that they're being safe. The production crews at least are being safe. I'm sure they are. Frequent tests and everything.
I feel like of any filmed piece to have a skeleton crew, porn would be very easy to achieve. I didn't
Absolutely.
word that sentence very well, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I imagine they're pretty easily adaptable to that. But yeah, it's also funny like to think of like movies or shows that were filmed during COVID that were not set during the time of COVID, but you can still tell that they were filmed during COVID. Like I heard about a movie that was shot I think I shot it in like April or May of like 2020. It doesn't acknowledge COVID as being a thing that exists. But like all the characters, it was like a low budget indie movie. I don't know what it was called, but all the characters are all like 6 feet apart. Like no. And like people are like going to barbecues and there are like 5 people there. They're all like 20 feet away from each other. So yeah,
it could have been the golden time of cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, I guess so.
Of all the times to use them.
No kidding. Yeah, it could have been like. Have you ever heard that movie 3 Men and a Baby?
Yeah.
There's like that. There was an urban legend about that movie where supposedly in a scene in Ted Danson's apartment, you can see the ghost of a child a child actor who supposedly died on the set years before. And then someone pointed out like, no, that's just a cardboard cutout of a child that was like behind a curtain. And apparently there's some reason for it being there in the movie, but people.
Oh, so it's not just a sloppy props master who forgot their cardboard cutout.
I don't think so. No, I think that. I mean, I have to go back and watch the movie, but I'm pretty sure the Ted Danson character has a reason for it being there. But that just means that someone saw it completely out of context and it was like, "Oh, that must be the ghost of a dead child." I mean, I haven't seen the rest of the movie, mind you, but I think it's safe to say that there's absolutely no reason for that being there. And anyway, that was way off topic, but whenever I hear cardboard cutouts, I think of that. And I feel like there's the same people who. There's another one about like supposedly in The Wizard of Oz. There's a scene where this whole menagerie of people are going down the yellow brick road. In the distance, there's this huge bird, and the bird spreads out its wings really, really, really far. That some people have misinterpreted that as being the site of one of the little people hanging himself.
What?
It's like because spread of the wings kind of looks like legs swinging. And so the urban legend was that one of the cast members hung himself on the set while the movie was being filmed, which is not true, by the way. And I just want to make that perfectly clear. That did not happen. I could kind of see how it does kind of look like that. Like I've seen the scene in isolation, and yeah, it does. I could see how someone, because it's in the distance. It's not terribly clear, but once someone explains it to you, it's like, oh, of course, it's a bird's wings. But yeah,
what a lot of extra material to bring to such a small detail.
I think people just have, and I shouldn't say people. Like I share this a bit too. Like they're always on the lookout for like the most macabre interpretation of something imaginable. I had a driver's ed instructor in 11th grade who was insane. She was really ridiculous. And she would tell these urban legends as if they were things that happened to her, I guess, to really kind of put the fear of driving mishaps into us. And so she would say things like, I had a friend once who was driving home after work, and as he was driving, he saw a box in the middle of the road, and he was really tired. So he was like, oh, I'm too tired to swerve out of the way of this thing. I'm just going to run over. It's just a dumb box in the middle of the road. It's just empty. And then at the last second, he was like, no, maybe I should stop and get out. So he stopped his car and he walked over to the box, and inside that box was his 2-year-old son. That's, oh, Miss Trusky, what a life you've led.
I I also feel like of all the things to be afraid of when it comes to driving, boxes in the middle of the street is a very small consideration.
Yeah, I mean, was she just writing down a list of things that she really needed to impart to us? She was like, okay, obviously stopping at a red light, don't always yield, don't just come to a complete stop at yellow lights. Oh, and also boxes in the middle of the road. One of the common killers.
All right, speaking of ideas that aren't bad, I don't know if this is a great intro, but Darren, tell us all about your project, your unmade project. Give us the old elevator pitch.
Okay, so basically, my hook is that what if there was a show about a female curmudgeon? I guess that's basically, it's not a great elevator pitch. You would want to know a bit more, but that was kind of like the animating like hook behind what made me write it. So basically it's called Friendless, and it is about a woman who's sort of a misanthrope, not crazy about people, and she was married. So the woman's name is Steph, and she was married to a man named Mike, and he unfortunately passes away. And as a result, she now has to learn how to cultivate friendships again. And so she attends this friendship seminar, which is run by this woman who is a sort of like former. This is not a great elevator pitch, by the way. I'm really just describing everything that goes on.
We're going from the basement to the top floor.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, yeah, to keep it basic, then she attends this friendship seminar, meets this other woman named Jackie, who also is not a misanthrope, but due to serious issues with, say, like anxiety, has also a lot of difficulty making friends. And so basically, in the pilot, they sort of strike up this very tentative, slightly desperate friendship. And so that gets tested when Steph decides that she wants to start dating again, and Jackie thinks that's a bit early. Ideally, like at the end of the pilot, this is what I've sketched out in the pilot. They do manage to overcome, again, tentatively, temporarily, the sort of difficulties they had earlier in the pilot regarding staying friends. And then what I'd want for the rest of at least the season, going on into the series, was an attempt to try to start an actual group of friends. Yeah. So the idea being, okay, so it's been this sort of Herculean task to even make a single friend. And so that would be the sort of project for the rest of the series, would be to see these two people adding friends, certain friends maybe make it into the permanent rotation, others fall away. And so, yeah, so basically about these two women basically desperately trying to make like lasting friendships, and despite whatever personality flaws they have that have made that difficult for them. I think it was like 2 minutes long. I'm sorry.
It's like they're making a planned community friend group.
Basically, yeah.
I'm trying to think of the neighborhood in Toronto, but the name escapes me. But basically, it's like King West.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I think I know
that area where like suddenly they're like at condos, grocery store, immediately community go.
Right. Or like that new...
That's sort of like I don't want to say artificial, because that seems too mean, but kind of like okay, we need a friend group, and the assembling of it is maybe a little bit more conscious than we'd like. Am I
correct? I think I know what you mean. Yeah. So it's it wouldn't be like as organic maybe as other, because I think when friendships happen, typically they tend to happen because people are just around. They're just people that you go to school with, they're people you work with, people that you do stand-up comedy with, whatever. Yeah. So I mean, this is, I think, maybe one of the novel things about the show, I guess, is just the fact that you've got people who are looking for friendships almost as like a project, not unlike like you mentioned planned communities. I always think of like the new one that Disneyland is apparently doing.
Oh my gosh. I could talk for an hour on this, because the Disney adult is a genre of person that I find so interesting.
Yeah.
We're not going to go into it because we only have so much time.
Right. Yeah. But like the notion that, instead of finding friendship, again, through circumstance, through happenstance, through convenience, you're almost like applying to be a friend. And I'm not saying that they would be technically like, or literally accepting applications. It would be a sort of like, it could be, yeah. I was thinking more like almost putting out ads somewhere, and much to say, I mean, there are, I mean, it's not that different really from, say, like in more romantic relationships, like speed dating or something. It's no less formal than that. Yeah. So it would be almost like they would maybe almost have like speed dating, but for friendships. So that would be like a potential episode maybe where they try that on for size.
I do find it very relatable, not only as a female curmudgeon, but also just as someone in their early 30s who's realizing how hard hard it is to make new friendships in adulthood. It's just real tricky.
Yeah, and I think it's something. I think it's something that's very timely as a topic. It seems making friendships not only seems to be harder as you get older these days, but just harder for people generally. Like no matter what age you are, it just seems, I don't know. It just seems like people are of all ages are maybe getting more and more alienated from each other. And I don't want to we get into like discussion of late capitalism or something, but
well, I mean, if you just look at, like we were talking about with planned communities, if you look at, say, a neighborhood, it's very hard for kids to, say, hang out after school. It's harder for kids to hang out together after school at a park, etc. It's hard for people to find a community space. It's actually very interesting because I was thinking recently about the death of the mall. So I got into an internet hole learning all about the history of the mall. The man who invented the mall didn't envision it as his dream for the mall was not what it became. Basically, his theory was that in our lives, we have three places. There's the first place, which is the home, the second place, which is your workplace, and the third place, which is the community space where we go to be social and where we go to, do things like shop, but shopping isn't the number one. And so the first mall was created in, I don't know where, somewhere on the eastern United States. And it had shops, but it also had fountains. It had a bird sanctuary as a part of it. Basically, he was trying to create a walkable community in the United States. But because the United States is so smooth-brained about car culture, they took that idea and they were like, let's surround it with a giant parking lot and make it only accessible by car and put it far out in a completely inconvenient space so that the mall became essentially the antithesis of what the guy was trying to create. But my point being, I guess, is that in our modern lives, it's very hard to find that third place where we can all like hang out and be friends and form kind of community connections instead of just workplace connections.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know how long ago this was, or, maybe I'm idealizing
it was
the
like
past,
the 1950s, I think. Definitely post-war.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so I feel like even, I don't know, maybe this was already kind of in motion before then, but the notion of there being really any sort of neighborhood fellowship, or it just kind of seemed like once the sort of capitalist working culture was in place, it just became very segmented in that the people you worked with, you saw at work, and then there's no real kind of camaraderie that you can build when you're just seeing people at work, in my experience anyway, because that you need leisure time for that. And then, leisure time, of course, became so scarce and harder to capitalize on when you've worked. This is definitely the case with me now, like 40 hours a week, and especially during COVID, but even before then, your leisure time just becomes, you're almost like just recuperating from the 8 hours that you just worked that day. And so, it just does have the effect of just keeping people more kind of isolated and atomized. But at the same time, if you're not meeting people at work, then where are you meeting them then if that's the case? So it's just
and even the friends. Sorry, one of the things I realized about myself is that I talk over people constantly.
No problem.
I was going to say one of the things that makes it hard to form friendships in adulthood as well is that the way our brains work is that you need a certain amount of hours. Like literally, our brains are so funny. They're so specific about the weirdest things. To consider someone an acquaintance, you have to spend X number of hours with them. And in order to consider someone a friend, you need to spend Y amount of hours with them. And then in order to consider them a close friend, you have to spend Z amount of hours with them. And I am forgetting the amount of hours. But I think one of the things I realized when I saw that was, of course it's easy to make friendships when you're a kid because you're in class with them all the time. You're at recess with them. You're just spending so much time with your friends. Of course, you're going to have these closer bonds. And then when you're an adult, you see each other, like for lunch once a week. So it makes friendship itself, the art of friendship and the art of feeling close to another person, so difficult.
Yeah, and I feel like, that's something that's been in motion for a while. But obviously these days, people have to work even more, like more and more, and increasingly just to earn even a bare minimum living wage. And so, I think maybe that's what maybe drew me to this as a sort of conceit, as a sort of guiding theme, was that it's becoming more and more difficult to form those kinds of, to earn the kinds of number of hours you might need to have someone become a close friend. Like those hours are just being squeezed more and more by the demands of capitalism, I guess, and of just trying to pay the rent. Like, it's just becoming more and more of a sort of pressing, acute lack, I guess, for people.
The main character interests me because the dynamic of two misanthropic people finding each other and then becoming a couple, and then them just being the two of them a unit forever. Well, not forever, because people don't live forever, but is a couple that I've seen everywhere. And the premature dissolution, I guess, of that couple is, I think, a very interesting thing to explore. And I think that your character they had like a funky pet together or something.
Not in the pilot.
Did they have a
didn't
lizard?
It's been a while since I've read this pilot. I don't think they had a lizard, but that's something I could think about incorporating. It would be an interesting kind of lifeline as far as having at least one thing that sort of keep you tethered to your past with this person that you've had this, you both shared.
Maybe I'm mixing it up. I should say for the audience that I have read Darren's pilot that he's referencing. So that's what I mean when I say, like, didn't she have a lizard? I'm not having a stroke.
Right.
Every time I've met a couple like this, they have a menagerie of animals. There are a couple cats in there. Sometimes there are lizards. They tend to be childless and real animal lovers.
Huh.
But again, this is my very limited scope of just the people I've met in my life. And I'm assuming, oh yeah, this is a genre of person.
That does make sense, though. Yeah, because I think that I don't mean to generalize too much about sort of more misanthropic people, but yeah, I mean, certainly look, I have a mom who is a bit of a misanthrope. Like, she's not a people person, not the warmest person in the world. But having said that, she loves animals. I mean, we had 2 cats, and yeah, I mean, she definitely loved animals. So yeah, it does make sense in my experience that people who aren't, a lot of people are let down by other people, but they're not let down by their pets. Like, your cat will never bail on you for any reason. Your cat will never, I don't know, your cat will always be there for you if you need someone to lie on your stomach or whatever, So like, yeah, that does make sense. That's something if I were to ever do anything with this, it would definitely need more drafts. I think I kind of just have the one draft. So that could be a good thing to incorporate. I think it definitely makes sense. Yeah. A cat or a lizard, but maybe a dog, maybe, I don't know, a cockatiel. I'm just spitballing animals here for no reason. But yeah. Maybe a bird. Maybe it could be like a sassy parrot who is always making wisecracks. And the parrot could have a catchphrase like, I don't think so. Or like, give me the money. I don't know. That would really take in a different direction. It would be more of a ABC family show or something.
Or maybe kind of like it would take it into kind of elf territory.
Sure.
The Teenage Witch, where sometimes it's a real parrot, sometimes it's a puppet that's like snapping its fingers in a sassy way. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We could just go straight up puppet and yeah. But my favorite thing about Alf is that apparently, because Alf was a puppet, and it wasn't the kind of puppet where it was on strings and people moved around, which I think is how Sesame Street works. There would be a person literally underneath, like with the puppet on their hand, and they'd be like, then they'd be behind the couch or whatever. Sometimes, but if Alf ever had to like be depicted walking the living room, like they would have holes cut in the studio, like in the living room set or the kitchen set or whatever, where the puppeteers would sit in so they could maneuver Alf, and so people were always like stepping into these holes.
Oh my god!
I think, yeah, I know that the guy who played Alf's the dad, his name escapes me, Max Kinsella, I think his name was, but yeah, he especially hated working on the show. He was like a trained stage actor, and he did some interesting work before and after that, and yeah, he really hated Alf. I think on the last, when they filmed the last episode after they were done shooting, he immediately left and drove away and did not say goodbye to anybody.
At first I thought you were going to say something like he destroyed the puppet, like he tore the head off of it and was like, goodbye forever.
That would have been great if he just grabbed the puppet and been like, all right, you fucking asshole. Finally I can destroy you and not get fired.
40 years. Wait, that show did not air for 40 years, but however long the show aired.
Yeah, probably felt like 40 years to him. Poor guy. Whatever. Yeah, he made decent money. I'm not crying for him.
All right, so I'm a TV executive. I've picked up your pilot. I love this curmudgeonly woman and her friend and her maybe parrot, maybe lizard. How many seasons do you need for this TV show? Do you want it to be kind of like an indefinite Days of Our Lives thing that stretches out? Or are you like, here's my idea for this arc, Breaking Bad style. I know how it's going to end. 7 seasons.
I've fantasized about this. There's no better way to put it. But the idea of this getting picked up and being any sort of ongoing concern is more in the realm of fantasy. But yeah, I've thought about it, and 4 seasons does seem ideal to me. I think that would be the perfect amount of time for, and I think I wouldn't want too much time to have elapsed between seasons. I would think maybe a few months, maybe each season ends, with one or two additions to this core group of friends, but again with some people having left as well, not unlike Law and Order. This is, I think of this as like a Law and Order thing. Actually, now that I think about it, this is going to go 20 seasons. There will be no original cast members by the end of it.
It's going to be like the Odysseus's ship of friend groups.
Absolutely, yeah. I've never read the Odyssey. I can't pretend to. I'm not as.
It's a logic. It's like a logic puzzle.
Oh, okay. So
it's like Odysseus has a ship, and every year he goes to repair it, and he repairs it with new planks of wood. And after 20 years, there isn't a single plank of wood that's from the original ship. So is the ship still the same ship?
Oh, I see. Okay, I've never heard of that. Yeah, so
I think it might be Odysseus, maybe Theseus. Both of them were Greek guys who had boats. So you know what? I'm not wrong, no matter what I say.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think 4 seasons
Jason in the
would be ideal. And I would want, obviously Steph would be the sort of the main focus. She would be like sort of the, whatever you want to call it, the tentpole of the show. I guess not like a Sex in the City. She would be like the Carrie of the group. Like, everyone would. So
it's like a Carrie trying to create her group of gals.
Yeah, maybe that's the elevator pitch. It's Sex in the City, and Carrie hasn't assembled the gals yet, but she is. She is. Okay, maybe it's not the great elevator pitch quite yet. Whoever is like the exec I'm pitching to is like, good. This guy's been tripping over his words for the last 40 seconds.
Speaking of the Sex and the City, how do I phrase this? Are you building along the lines of the 4 different archetypes of women? Is there going to be a moment where they're like, sorry, we already have a nurturer archetype, so you can move along?
I definitely didn't think of them as archetypes. I know that in the pilot, which is all I've written, I just really have those 2 characters. I haven't fleshed really much out beyond that. But that is something I should maybe start thinking. I could maybe think about a bit more. I would want all of them in some way to just be misfits in a sense, or feel like outcasts in some way. I guess as far as them being archetypes, I guess I would try to avoid that. But at the same time, like it's hard not to think of them as types in a sense. Like, okay, so you've got Steph, again, that sort of central Carrie Bradshaw figure, I guess. Tim already doing it, right? So they're already like types in that sense. But I don't know that there would be, I guess maybe Jackie being more anxious and more of a people pleaser might be a Charlotte. So then I would just need like a Samantha, someone who is very sexually bold and horny, for lack of. And then you've got your Miranda, who is the kind of the has short hair. Yeah, just the one that would be her whole thing. Oh my god, I don't know how you guys have such long hair. Like how do you not eat? How do you eat without it getting in your mouth? Someone with short hair, I wouldn't trade it for the world. That would be great. I would love to have this. Could be just like a 1 episode thing, just a character they bring in who is just obsessed talking about how she has short hair, and then it's like, this is not going to work out. You're really annoying.
I don't think I've ever met anyone who's like insufferable specifically about short hair.
I will say, before this, I guess last fall, I had hair down to my shoulders because I partly due to COVID.
Is that one of the symptoms?
No, probably due to COVID, just because I didn't want to go get it cut. And I didn't want to do it myself, but also like it had been like a year even before that since I'd had my hair cut. So yeah, we're talking about like a couple years of hair growth. Yeah, it was getting in my mouth when I tried to eat and stuff. And after like I got
a wind tunnel.
Well, no, but it was just really out of control. Like it would just get in my mouth.
Maybe you had just put on lip gloss, which is that putting on lip gloss is the invitation for your hair to travel to your mouth region.
Could be, yeah. But
I'm sure this is less relatable to you But if there are any ladies listening to this podcast, they're going to be like, haha.
Yeah, it wasn't an issue with me. It was just way too long. And so, yeah, after I got it cut really, really short, like it was almost completely bald. And I really loved it. It was such a relief. The thing is, if I lived with someone, I probably would be talking constantly about how nice it is to have short hair. I'd be like, God, yeah, I don't know how people with long hair do it. Like, it's just it's so cool when I go out for a walk and stuff. Like just the hair, the wind running through across my hair, my head, and it's just I don't know how people have long hair. Like I couldn't wear it in a ponytail. I just really like the fact that it's less work to shampoo. And yeah, I think it would have been pretty insufferable. As it is, those thoughts are just running through my head, and I was just annoying myself.
I'm really glad that you liked your haircut. That's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah, it was a shock. Yeah, when I went in, the barber was like, "Are you sure?" And I've been in like a few different instances because I don't know what good hair is. Like I've had some bad haircuts in my time, and I remember this one time I went to a barber and I really wanted it cut really short, and the barber was like, "Okay, you want to trim it? You didn't want it short, did you?" And something about the tone of it made me think, I guess not. So I ended up just getting like a pretty mild trim, and I was like, because I got weirdly not bullied because
just intimidated,
but like in a way where the barber probably didn't even mean to. Like I just read something into his tone. It probably wasn't there. I think he probably didn't even mean anything by it. But yeah, so as like I've had some bad haircuts. I mean, like the same haircut, just little the hairline on the front and just over the ears along the sides, and so I was just like, screw it. I'm just getting it almost all of it taken off, and it was nice. Given that it had been a year and a half into COVID and very little bit of my life had changed, it was just nice to have a drastic change of some kind in my life. I'll probably do it again pretty soon. I'll probably get get it shorn again pretty short real soon.
I mean, that's your archetype. You're that guy now.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm short. That's you just reach a certain point in your life where if you're Bruce Willis, for instance, you're just a bald guy now. If you're Johnny Knoxville, it's like I'm just not gonna color my hair anymore. I'm just a gray-haired guy. I think I'm just a buzz-cutted guy now. No more long hair. Nothing down to my shoulders. God knows.
I'm happy you have found a style that works for you.
Yes.
Circling back to the show, so you have the Miranda who's got the short hair, who gets booted out because she's obsessed with her short hair. Does the show end? So it ends in 4 seasons. Season 4. Does it end when they've like completed the roster of friends, or is it something different? Like she circles back and realizes that she's happy on her own with her parrot, or is she like basking in her new circle of friends, thinking I've made it?
That's a good question. I tend to try to avoid endings that suggest that from now on everything's going to be just fine, because I'm an artist. But also like I just like things to be a bit more open-ended. It just seems a bit more realistic. So yeah, I could see like an ending where perhaps she decides to move to another city, maybe for a professional opportunity, and kind of sees herself kind of back to square one in a sense, but maybe more hopeful than she was when she started the series, that she'll be able to reconstitute some sort of friendships. So yeah, maybe with a bit more hope than she started the show out with.
Because she knows she's capable of it because she's done it once before, so she knows she can do it again.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm thinking of. Did you see that movie 2 Days, 1 Night with Marion Cotillard?
I did not.
It's a great movie. She plays a factory worker who she suffers pretty seriously from depression. She is in danger of having her job at the factory made redundant unless she can convince all of her other coworkers to vote to keep her position. And so while in the midst of depression, she has to go seek out her coworkers and try to convince them to keep her job as opposed to getting this bonus. The thrust of the movie
feels like a real nightmare.
It is, yeah. It's probably one of the best movies I've seen about depression. Yeah, I'd really recommend it. I think you'd like it. Yeah, and so I don't want to give much away, but the thrust of the movie is not that she is like triumphant per se, but just the fact that she is able to find the capacity to fight and to get back into the world. And
that is true. Sometimes just knowing that you are capable is almost better than achieving the goal you set out to do in the first place. If that makes sense.
Just finding like the
one and done, you're just kind of like, oh, I can do things.
Yeah, just finding the wherewithal to be able to struggle. I think maybe what I take from the movie is that that's kind of the most you can hope for in a lot of ways. The most that's within your control, I guess, is maybe the best way to put it. And so I kind of think of that. The way you're describing, you're putting the question, kind of makes me think of that, and I think that would be a good model for what the series could turn out to be. Someone who it loses like the inclination to turn away from the world and decides to put herself into it.
We talked a lot about how modern society isolates us, but I also think that it's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking that these things are somehow our own fault. Like, oh, I am not likable. There's something about me that people just don't like, and that's why I have no friends. And it becomes this very self-pitying thing that also is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you go around with this kind of attitude, no one's going to want to be your friend in the first place.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I do have the inclination to slip into self-pity a lot of the time. And I've literally had that kind of thought where it's, something, if I'm in this situation, it must be something I did or didn't do, must be some kind of core flaw in my personality. So that is definitely something I struggle with a lot. And I think if I were to try to depict that, then I'd be more inclined to have someone not entirely overcome that kind of inclination, but just to deal with it, maybe in a bit more of a healthy way, where it's not vanquished, but you learn to kind of deal with it as it comes up. And
kind of separate it from yourself and be able to view it for what it is, which is just a thought and a worry, as opposed to a true value judgment of yourself.
Yeah,
I remember
definitely.
when I was in high school, I was the only in my class, I don't want to say poor, because we weren't like wearing barrels with bare feet. I say I was the only poor kid, but what's probably more accurate is that I was the only non-rich kid. Like, I was the only one in my class who had to share a room with a sibling, for example, and every one of my classmates was like, "Oh my God, what? You mean at your second house in Florida, right? No, you don't have a second house in Florida? What? Wait, you must be saying that you have to share a bathroom with your sister. No, you have to share a bathroom with your whole family?" Like, that sort of this impression went on for too long, but just because as I was doing it, it was bringing up a lot of stuff. But anyway, I thought for a long time that there was just socially something wrong with me because I could not connect with my classmates. And looking back on it now, I'm like, oh, it was definitely an income thing, because they were able to do things like go on trips together to Cuba out of the blue. They were able to kill time at the mall just shopping and spending money on random things, which were things that were not accessible to me. And then in adulthood, I saw, oh, I'm not some sort of weirdo who can't make friends. There was just a big income disparity between me and all my classmates.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that comes a bit more clear as you get older. Certainly, you're more able to come to terms with the actual material conditions that you're living in. Yeah, I think with me, like I do know that there weren't other, like, I grew up in a town of like 700 people, and there are some more people in like surrounding towns.
Shout it out. What's the town of 700 people?
Glenboro, Manitoba. Yeah, so I just didn't have, I don't know many other people who had my sort of similar interests. I played hockey, but I was never very good at it. And like, I didn't know anyone else who was, who would have taken the trip into Winnipeg to see a movie at Art House Theater or something, or, go to see a show here, something like that. Certainly at the time, I thought, well, there must be something, wrong with me if I'm not one of, part of the sort of more popular crowd. But then it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe I just was just into different things that, a lot of kids, at my school just really weren't. Yeah.
There was a very quick moment where I was somehow in with like the popular group, and they dragged me to see Dickie Roberts' Former Child Star in theaters. And I was like, I get to pick the next movie. And they were like, fine. And then the movie that I took them to, keep in mind, this was their sensibility, that this was the movie that they all agreed on. Okay. I took them to see Pierre Point, The Last Hangman.
What's that? I don't think I've heard of that.
It's the true story of the hangman who went to Nuremberg to hang all the Nazis.
And you must have been like 14 at the time, probably 14 or 15.
Yeah. I was like 14 or 15, and I was like, this is getting really good reviews. And they were all like, what are we watching?
A documentary about a hangman at Nuremberg.
And I was like, isn't this interesting? Because it was talking a lot about how, it is a very precise science where you have to know what the person weighs. What you want to do is you want to kill them instantly. But unless you're able to, measure the rope properly and all that stuff, then they can either slowly strangle to death or be completely decapitated or partially decapitated. Those are things you want to avoid. So this guy apparently was like the best at killing people right away. So he went to the Nuremberg trials. and it's all about his like moral quandary of being a hangman, and that was a fun experience in retrospect.
And, and your friends were like, this has little to no David Spade participation.
They were like, where are the penis jokes?
Adam Sandler didn't produce this.
I mean, there weren't penis jokes, but I think there were like 2 instances of full male nudity in the most non-sexual way possible, as you can tell from the premise of the film.
Sure, yeah.
What a fun movie to drag a bunch of 15-year-olds to when you are also 15 and want them to like you.
Yeah. That reminds me of when I was 13 and I slept over at a friend's house with another couple friends. It was on me to bring the movie, and so I brought Schindler's List. I thought, yeah, that's a fun movie to watch at a sleepover. But hey, you know, I was clearly just thinking about myself because I was like, well, because this was like months after it had already won all those Oscars, and you know, again, in a small town, like it didn't, you know, I hadn't had a chance to see it yet. So I was like, well, I really want to see Schindler's List, and I got to see Schindler's List, and what better opportunity than to subject
That's a long movie.
It's a long, obviously devastating movie.
Did you guys make it through the whole thing?
I think I might have. I don't think my other friends did. They definitely had passed out beforehand. Yeah, it was. They didn't really complain, like, you know, to their benefit, but they clearly weren't into it. Really, I mean, it was Schindler's List, and they were 13. But yeah, I mean, there must have been so many
At
like
first,
other.
When you said that, I thought you were making up that story to make fun of me.
No, that's the real thing. Yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe that's just like a thing that like thoughtful, kind of, well, in my case, pretentious 13-year-olds.
Pretentious in my case as well, yes.
Well, yeah, but yeah, maybe that's just a thing where like everyone, oh yeah, any kind of like snobby person, you know, who was like snobby at the age of 13 has a story about subjecting their friends to a movie about the Holocaust. Oh yeah, I took my friends to Shoah. Yeah. For me, it was Night and Fog.
I remember my first ever date. That might not be true, but like my first formal, like, picked me up and did dinner and a movie date when I was a teenager. I got to pick the movie, and I picked There Will Be Blood.
Oh wow, okay.
I don't know if the audience remembers it as sharply, as crystal clear as I do, but I believe there's no dialogue for the first, I don't know, what feels like 20 minutes of the film.
That's right.
And he kept trying to, like, he thought that was me being like, let's make out, but instead I was like slapping his hands away and being like, pay attention.
Well, she took me to a movie with
performance.
Yes. Are you not aware of Paul Thomas Anderson? He's the new major American auteur. He's our new Wells, our new.
I'm not that old that I was like, well, Paul Thomas Anderson is this young up and comer.
Right. Yeah. But that is funny that he interpreted it as like, well, I mean, she must have taken me to a movie that has no dialogue for the first 20 minutes for a reason. I mean, we can make out and we'll still know what's going on. And you're like, no, get away. Don't you see the artistry? The bit of oil. Yeah, the bit of oil just splattered on the camera, right there by breaking the fourth wall. Do you not appreciate what's being staged for us here?
That should have been the first red flag in that relationship.
Yeah. It was a boor. Uncultured boor, yes.
All right, so let's do a lightning round.
Okay.
Is there anything that you haven't mentioned about your pilot, your series, that you really like about it, and you just want to quickly mention it?
Well, I mean, I guess what I really like about it, and this is, I've given like kind of the broad strokes, but in writing it, one of my favorite things about writing is that, you know, even though it is grounded emotionally, at least I that's what I went for. One of my favorite things is adding really silly bits. So one of their first outings, like when Jackie and Steph and Jackie first hang out outside of the friendship seminar, they do this this excursion to a female country music star wig museum where they have. And it's specifically, I should say, Canadian.
Go to that museum. Does it exist in real life, or did you make it up?
I made it up. And I should say it is specifically Canadian. So you've got your Shania Twains, your whoever else. I forget.
That makes it so much funnier because I was like, oh, it's going to be all Dolly Parton. Right.
Yeah. But I decided having it be Canadian would be a nice. And now I'm blanking on any other Canadian female country singers, unfortunately. But I want to say Terry something. but you know, yeah, Terry Clark.
Country music.
Yeah. Well, Canadian country music in particular, I'm not
picturing
too
like a
knowledgeable.
Simpsons-esque kind of banner outside the museum being like what was it? Country music singer wig museum, something like that. And then a subheader being like, no, we don't have any of Dolly Parton's.
Right. Yeah.
And someone driving up and then like backing away.
That could be like a good addition. Like Dolly Parton is American. Reminder: Dolly Parton is American. That could be a nice, fun little addition. And yeah, so and the wigs have been definitely acquired and through really illicit means. Yeah, and then there's other like and there's like this really popular show that everyone keeps referencing. It's about a group of friends who it's basically like a Friends show, except that in every episode like a disaster of some kind happens, like a world or like huge natural disaster. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and reread this thing, frankly, because as I'm saying it, that sounds really ridiculous. But yeah, it is. Something like that.
One of my favorite genres of thing is shows within a show. They're some of the most fun stuff to write because there are no stakes. You don't have to worry about them at all. You can just make them as fun and ridiculous. Like I'm thinking of like the soap opera from Twin Peaks that's kind of playing in the background.
Yep.
With the dramatic music and the just completely lampooning what eventually the show would become, which is weird.
Right.
Things that play in the background of shows.
Right.
Show that's just that. The show in the background of show.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was thinking of just writing something ridiculous because you'll hear stories about like screenwriters writing stuff, trying to get it sold, writing stuff that they think people, gatekeepers will like, not getting anywhere. And then they write something ridiculous that's just completely as a lark from out of their own sensibilities. And that ends up being the thing that, breaks them or whatever, that gets their foot in the door. And so, yeah, I was thinking, I was working on a pilot recently and I kind of put it aside. I wasn't sure where it was going, but it was about, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Canadian 80s rock star Gowan.
No, okay. I wish I did.
Yeah, so he was really big in the 80s. He's almost like Lawrence. His full name is Lawrence Gowan, but he recorded under the name Gowan.
Is that spelled Gowan?
That's right. Yeah, I don't know if that rings any bells. It was a long time ago. Yeah, and so he was basically like almost a prog rock kind of guy. He is currently the lead singer of Styx. I'm sure you've heard of the band Styx at some point.
Did you say currently?
Yeah. He took over for the original lead singer of Styx, and so he is now the lead singer of the band Styx. Like he did "Come Sail Away" and "Mr. Roboto."
No, but like they're still going under new management. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they mainly just do, State Fair circuit, that kind of thing. I don't think they put out new albums.
Now playing
or anything.
A Casino-rama sort of deal.
I think so. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so. An idea. I guess this is kind of like inspired by that show Jan, with Jan Arden. But yeah, so my idea for the show was he accidentally burns down a section of forest while playing an outdoor music festival because his pyrotechnics get out of hand. He gets too ambitious with them, and so a judge sentences him to do 1 year of teaching music to senior citizens. I guess it's almost like an AP Bio kind of show where it's like this teacher thrust into this teaching job they don't really want and they're looking to get out of it. But yeah, so that was like I came up with this really dumb premise and I was like, well, let's just see where it goes. But it ended up being not terribly weird or anything. So yeah, it ended up being, I guess, maybe a bit more straightforward than I thought it would. So maybe I just need to go back to it and get weird with it or something. Yeah, so that was my attempt at writing something really, I guess, silly.
Left field.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I should try tapping into the really ridiculous, silly part of my brain, giving that a go.
I will say a lot of my favorite things that you've written have been just completely bonkers off the wall.
Yeah,
I think you do that very well.
Yeah, thank you. And I tend to really tap into that just from like through social media, like Instagram stories or tweets or whatever. It's a pretty good medium for just not really overthinking things, and just being randomly dumb. But yeah, I think it might be fun to really take that kind of instinct and run with it for a 30-page pilot or something. I think that could be really fun because yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for trying to write something could sell and that is speaks to a particular audience, but at the same time it can be a bit stifling if you do have that urge to write something really ridiculous. So
it's important to write things when there are no stakes. involved. I really think. Just write things for you to remind yourself why you like writing in the first place. And then that makes the staked writing, that like the professional writing, so much easier to do because you remember, oh yeah, I'm good at this and actually like it.
Yeah, I almost think of it as like that kind of writing with more stakes. That's almost like the day job, and then in a sense, although I mean I have an actual day job that is whatever. I won't. It sucks, but in any case,
it's like a parfait. They're the layers of day jobs that you have when you work in entertainment or any sort of creative field.
Yeah, and that's I think why I can't imagine or any writing job really being worse than my current job. So I'm sympathetic in a sense to anyone who say like has a writing job and maybe they don't enjoy that job or they find it creatively stifling or something. But there's that part of me like just in my experiences generally over my life where it's like any writing job has got to be better than the day jobs I've had. Like the worst writing job is still got to be better paying, more fun because you're still getting paid to write and come up with jokes or whatever.
I have a great anecdote about this, and it's not my anecdote, so I hope that I get the details right. But a friend of mine who lives in the States was telling me how he was so happy that he finally had gotten a job where he was being paid to write. But he mentioned that it was a little soul sucking because essentially he was writing tweets for ABC.
Oh, okay.
And he's saying I love on paper saying that like I'm a writer for ABC, but I have to write things like everybody loves young Sheldon.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if it was ABC or I don't know whatever channel does young Sheldon. And he was just like, in many ways, having to say that young Sheldon is TV for the modern day thinker is more soul sucking than a lot of other things I've done.
Yeah, I can believe that just because I can't imagine that particular job being terribly well paying. I mean, if you were to compare it to say begging groceries, it might not even be that. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't that much more well paying because it's it might be like especially if it's a part-time job, which I think a lot of these jobs are, or like contract or whatever. Yeah, I can definitely see that being more soul sucking than. But then being staffed on a sitcom, and maybe you don't find the sitcom super funny, but you're still full time.
That's a rich man's complaint.
Yeah,
we're here in the mines producing content for brands. We're tweeting for Wendy's in the trenches.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That is a bit more like if you're tweeting for Wendy's, I can see how it could be just as soul sucking as it's just working at Wendy's. But
because then you have to actually actively pretend that you love Wendy's.
Yeah, and like if you're working at Wendy's, like customers will at least thank you. You'll at least hear the words "thanks a lot," or But yeah, if you're just tweeting for Wendy's, maybe you're not even getting any kind of that satisfaction. You're just getting constant instruction from your manager. Like you need to tweet 40 times in the next hour about the new shake or the new spicy chicken nuggets.
We need you to clap back at McDonald's.
Exactly. So McDonald's has tweeted this. If you could clap back at them and possibly mention West Elm Caleb, that would be super.
What a weird dystopic bent our creative output. I don't know where the sentence is going. You know what I mean? The world is so weird that our creative people now are having to do these things.
Yeah, it's so funny that it went from like a group of women, sort of commiserating over, this guy they all dated who was, certainly in quite a few instances, like seemed like genuinely shitty.
I'm sorry. It was a marketing ploy from Hinge.
Oh, wait, the whole thing was?
This is my theory, which is backed up from the fact, which is backed up by the fact that I'm very smart and savvy. No evidence, but like my gut tells me that was a thing that Hinge paid for because suddenly everyone was talking about Hinge.
God, that's like trying to figure out what's a CIA op and what isn't. Like, wait a minute, I think that's a psyop. I think wait, Charles Manson. I think Manson was actually with the CIA, and I think maybe the Beatles were too. Like, it's becoming. I like how like marketing has become. Like it's
just turned everyone into conspiracy theorists where we can't truly enjoy anything without being like, this is a marketing ploy.
Right. And I guess it is healthy to probably not trust any marketing whatsoever, but or anything that happens on social media, yeah, that is funny where it's like, yeah, and I used to be trusting of things that would go viral. Like, oh man, this hilarious phone call this guy made where he described something insane happening on the street. And then I'd play it for like a friend. They're like, yeah, that's fake. That didn't happen. What? No, but yeah, I wanted to believe, man. I was like,
or like
Fox.
getting riled up about a Reddit post where you're just like, how could this person? And then someone in the comments is like, this is a troll. His whole post history is just rage bait.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I wasted my emotions on this.
Yeah, it's a real minefield out there. It's wow. That's I mean, I think that sounds plausible. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. But that begs the question, like, is West Elm Caleb a real guy, or is that a?
I mean, my theory is that he's not. But can you imagine if he is? Can you imagine if Hinge came up with this marketing scheme and they just kind of like threw a dart into their database and were like, this guy?
Right. So all the women who were complaining about him did not date him, but he was a real guy. Decided to like ruin a random guy's life.
Just for fun, just for clicks.
Yeah. Well, to meet our aims, to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. So, well, that's CIA thinking too. It's like we gotta. I don't want to get too much into CIA, but
this conversation is made so much richer by the fact that you're sitting in almost a completely dark room.
Yeah.
Like backlit so that I cannot see your face.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel like
and you're
one
like,
of the lone,
that's a CIA op.
Yeah, I'm one of the lone gunmen on the X-Files. I definitely feel like, like one of those guys. Anyway, I forgot what we were talking about.
We were talking about at one point about your pilot.
Right. I don't quite. I'm just trying to figure out how I got onto West Elm Caleb. Because we were talking about Wendy's tweeting for Wendy. Oh, right.
And then we were talking about your show within a show.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And about writing with no stakes, and then we were talking about writing for money.
And
then it just went on from there.
Right.
So is there any, before we wrap up, are there any other little, like juicy little tidbits you want to share about your pilot? Or about writing that's been rejected in general? Or please, hopefully to do with the theme of the podcast. I know that I am the main culprit in going off topic.
Well, we mentioned that I've written some like humor pieces and stuff. But yeah, I have sent out humor pieces that have been literally rejected. So if you'd like, if it's okay, if it pleases the court, I would like to try reading one of them.
Yeah, read your favorite one.
Yeah, so this is it's shorter. So this is a piece I wrote, and it's a parody of those things you see on Instagram, the sort of self-help lists. So I saw one. This is literally, I think I ripped off the title of one of them. It was the biggest mistakes I made on my anxiety healing journey.
Okay.
So I wrote my own version. Number 1, while driving to my anxiety healing retreat in the mountains, I accidentally hit a man with my car. Number 2, instead of stopping to see if he was okay, I panicked and kept driving. Number 3, when I turned around and drove back to see if he was okay, he stared at me with rage in his eyes and reached into his pocket for what I thought was a gun, so I panicked and hit him again. Number 4, instead of simply driving away like last time, I got out of my car to make sure he was dead, and as I stepped out of my car, my ID fell out of my pocket. Number 5, when the police inevitably brought me in for questioning, I demanded to take a lie detector test, which I of course failed. Number 6, in defiance of my lawyer's advice, I demanded to go through with a trial rather than pleading guilty. Number 7, during my trial, I lied on the stand with every piece of testimony I gave, no matter how much evidence there was to disprove my claims. Number 8, at several points in my trial, I became frustrated and loudly threatened the life of the judge. Number 9, after being sentenced, I gave a statement in which I tried to introduce the possibility that I was not guilty by reason of insanity, which was obviously far too late. And finally, at number 10, while in prison, I have failed to prioritize self-care. So McSweeney's didn't go for that.
It's so funny.
McSweeney's didn't go for it. The site Points in Case didn't go for it. And at that point, I was like, I ran out of sites I could think of to send it to. So I just posted it on my blog.
So this offers us a fantastic segue. Darren, where can the people find you? What is the name of your blog, your Instagram, etc., so they can find and read and enjoy more humorous things like the one that you just read?
I have the blog that I mentioned is called the Darren Springer Achievements. It's a Medium blog. I've had a lot of weird, bad luck trying to maintain blogs. Like I had a blog that I tried to start through Wix that I had a lot of technical difficulties with. Like I couldn't change the font from this unreadable font. Like I'm just very inept at that kind of thing. And then I had like a Blogspot that I maintained for a while, but there's this weird thing with Blogspot where you can't post links to it on certain sites because they think it's, I don't know, porn or something. I don't know. Like it is they.
Darren, don't give us the history. Just promote yourself.
Sorry, you're right. I shouldn't. But in any case, the one to go to, it's a Medium site. It used to be a different kind of blog I was doing, but now I've converted it. Long story short, into a humor site, and it's the Darren Springer Achievement. And you can find me on. Well, I currently have my Twitter locked because I was trying to find a job, and I thought that might be holding me back. But you can always look me up on Twitter at Darren D Springer, and you can always submit a friend request, and I'll probably just accept you. And then on Instagram, I'm on Instagram as well, and I think that should just be at Darren Springer, I believe. So yeah, I'm really bad at self promotion. I really should just have a list of all my my ats here, but yeah. So it's just that is just Darren D Springer. Sorry, it's so weird that I started explaining my history of
but it's also
with blogs.
Refreshing because you talk to comedians and often you get that sales pitch where they're like, you can find my Instagram, my Twitter, and my blog and my YouTube, and they just have it all ready to go, ready to sell.
Yeah. I really should, though.
The first time I've had to been like, please just promote yourself. What is the name of the site?
Stop explaining the bad experiences you've had with blogs.
But they thought I was posting porn, so I got locked out of that.
It's weird though, the Blogspot thing. Like they just they don't let you post the links to it. But yeah, it is. And my Instagram is Springer Darren, by the way. So there you go.
There we go. We did it. All right, Darren. It's been such a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
I've laughed, I've cried from laughing, and it's just been a blast.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
All right. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.